Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, Expensive Spices. Welcome to the channel and welcome to another guide. In this guide, we're going to be taking a look at Magic Camp at Kerapac. This was one of the first videos on my channel that really popped off. I did the 3 combat style DPS guides and then I did Kerapac. But now that Magic has been changed with FSOA updates, it's time that we take a look at this once again. Now, the original video focused on both a budget and a best in slot setup and strategies for both. However, in the interest of time and for keeping my playlists organized, I'm going to be doing a budget guide separately when I feel that it needs to be updated. However, for the time being until that guide is made, I will go ahead and leave the original video up on the channel, and I will edit the title to tell people that it's just there for the budget guide and whatnot. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into this guide. So per usual, we're just going to go over the gear I am using really quickly and then do some example kills. So as far as gear is concerned, this is just a standard best in slot loadout at this point. I'm using Elite Tectonic. The perks on the Elite Tectonic are Biting 4, Hoarding. I would change this out to Biting 4 Mobile because Hoarding is not really needed anymore ever since Death Cost was reworked. Impatient 4, Genocidal. Genocidal is nice because you're supposed to do Kerapac on task. I have a note on Dragonkin task, and this is the only time I do Kerapac. I don't go and do off-task kills. And if you have 120 Slayer, this makes life a little bit easier because every once in a while, one of the Slayer Masters will notice your cape and you can get the task. And since Genocidal gives you a buff, you might as well take any free damage that you can get. Invigorating 4 is also nice for 4-ticking, giving you extra adrenaline every time you pop an auto attack. On the top here, I have Impatient 4, Devoted 4, and I also have Crackle 4, Relent 5. The rest of the gear is just Cinderbanes, Blast Diffusion Boots, Channeler's Ring, and an EOF with a G-Staff inside of it. I also just realized that my EOF did not have the ornament kit on it. The ABS EOF used to have the ornament kit on it, but I literally just realized that since I don't use it anymore, I could just toss it on here and get the 3 extra magic bonus. But regardless, it just has a Gothic staff inside of it, nothing fancy there. Channeler's Ring does have the enchantment on it, and for all intents and purposes, this is best in slot, at least for camping magic. If you want to do a hybrid setup, you could use Reaver's Ring. However, this is a Magic Camp guide, so we're just going to go on best in slot as far as Magic Camp is concerned. And Blast Diffusion Boot, just for the buff that they give to Detonate, very useful, very worthwhile. Grim is there because we still want all the crit chance that we can, because Magic is still a crit forward combat style, meaning you definitely want to be getting as much crit chance as humanly possible. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, Reaver's Ring has more raw crit chance, why shouldn't I just use that? And it's because this has a really good effect with G-Conk, and that's going to be the ability that's really carrying Magic right now, so you want to buff it as much as possible. The weapons I have are just Praisals with standard best in slot perks, so this is Precise 6 Aftershock 1 on the wand, Aftershock 4 Equilibrium 2. The reason you want this is you will maintain Aftershock stacks when switching to anything like a flanking or a lunging or a Karoming swap that is an offhand. Speaking of flanking swaps, I did go ahead and put a flanking swap in this preset because it makes Impact a rather nice ability to use, and since you have to stand under Kerapac as part of his mechanic or the first spec that he does on each phase, you might as well bring a flanking swap for Impact and or Deep Impact. And there's no dual wield penalty at this point, so you can go ahead and just G-Conk into an Impact or Deep Impact just like we did back in 2018. And the staff just has standard best in slots perks. It is Precise 6 Ruthless 1 and Aftershock 4 equal 2. The Zuck cape is just the hybrid cape because it's the one that I have. If you have a standard magic Zuck cape, that will work as well, just as long as you're getting the buffed Omni Power. Now the rest of the preset is just potions and food. As far as food is concerned, I just have Blue Blubbers in here and Super Cerebrews. I like the HP benefit that Super Cerebrews give. At the end of the day, it is very nice for P4. However, if you wanted to, you could switch these out for Super Guthix Rest and not deal with the stat drain. And I have 4 portents here just because I really don't have anything else to put into the preset. If you really wanted to go all out, you could probably put an SGB swap in here, as Kerapac is a 3x3 boss. And when I was testing out this preset on stream, I was using an SGB swap, but I honestly kept forgetting I had it and I never ended up using it. So if you end up trying it, let me know down in the comments below how that works out for you. As far as the potions are concerned, I just have a Vit Pot, that is for the echoes on P4. An Elder Overload Salve is in here just so I get the prayer benefits from salve. If you just want to go ahead and use regular elder overloads, that's perfectly fine. And then just a blessed flask as a prayer source. If you don't have blessed flask, you could put a super restore in here and maybe drop one of the portents. And this number of portents is kind of overkill for this boss, so you could easily drop 1 or 2 just depending on how much prayer you might use. Although to be fair, with Powder of Penance, you're not really going to be using any prayer. This is more so just an emergency. And last but not least, I have an adrenaline renewal flask here. I just put them in the flask form just to keep it kind of the same with everything else. The expensive spices here are just to buff the heals from blue blubbers a little bit. And last but certainly not least, Vuln Bombs are there just to get out extra damage. It's a free 10% damage, and it is a lossless Vuln. You don't have to sit there and 4-tick in the spell, and it's highly worthwhile to bring. Now for the miscellaneous parts of gear, you know, kind of like relics or anything else like that, as far as aura is concerned, I'm using Maniacal Aura. You could use Majorat, but I prefer Manny for getting the extra accuracy on the echoes for phase 4. Calg Demon is just there for the extra crit chance that it offers. Inside of my rune pouches, I'll hover over each of them so you can see what runes are in there. If you need to pause it for the rune pouch setup, feel free to pause the video now. And if we just go ahead and look in the banking preset, I do use my Powder of Penance, I use Quarm, Lantidime, and Spirit Weed Incense. If you wanted to be a little bit cheap, you could skip out on the Spirit Weed Incense and probably the Summoning Renewal Potion. As with Calg Demon, you're only using 1 special attack per minute, so you could save a little bit of cost not using them. However, it's habitual for me, so I'm always just going to spam all 3 of these. Obviously, we're using the Calg Demon like previously stated. And as far as relics, I have pretty much swapped over to using Zerk Fury, COE, and I have Shadow's Grace here just because I don't have Biting 4 mobile on my main set of Tectonic right now. However, once I did that, I would go ahead and probably just use Font of Life, or maybe swap something around so I could maybe get Blessing of Het in here, and then I would go ahead and use the Super Guthix Rest with the Blue Blubbers. However, honestly, the food situation is a little bit overkill. If you're worried about taking too much damage during the fight, you could swap out for Death Ward and maybe go with something like Fury of the Small if adrenaline gain is being a little bit of a problem for you. Or again, you could probably swap out for Death Ward and maybe go with Blessing of Het if you're just feeling you need the extra healing, you're trying to calm down some nerves and get through your first couple of kills. Nothing wrong with that. Also, I forgot to mention this. This is kind of after the fact. I just finished recording the example kills, but as far as gear is concerned, the last thing that I do have that is very important is I do have a Slayer helmet stand, and I have a Corrupted Slayer helmet on it, so I do get the damage and accuracy buff from being on Slayer task as well. Figured I should mention this. Now, you'll notice in this preset, there is no tank gear swap. I don't have a 3-piece crypt swap for Animate Dead or anything like that. Once you're comfortable with Kerapac hard mode and just going out and doing kills, there is absolutely no need for using any tank gear whatsoever. Even in that old budget guide, I proved that you can do kills in Virtus with the tier 85 dual wield, and yes, Virtus is power armor, it's not affected by Animate Dead. I'm mostly saying that because it gets kind of confused with that, being that it gives an HP buff, but Virtus is absolutely DPS gear, but I digress. However, if you're just learning this boss for the first time and you're struggling with P4 a little bit, you could swap out some of this food here for a 3-piece setup of either like Ganodermic, or if you have Superior Sea Singer that's augmented and perked, or you have some Crypt Bloom, you could bring a 3-piece armor set just to make life a little bit easier. However, once you're comfortable with the boss, you should be able to rock Tectonic no problem, and full send it for some kills. Speaking of which, I think it is time to get into some example kills. Alrighty, we have our preset loaded up and ready to go. I also should make a note that I do have the enhanced or enriched pawn effect shadow ring. I forget which one it is, but I have the passive effect. You just need 5,000 of the anima from each of the factions. You can buy it off the GE rather cheaply, and once you've upgraded it to be the enhanced one or whatever it is, you can go talk to the guy in the center area way up in there when you just teleport in with the ring, and he'll upgrade it to a passive, so it can just sit in your bank. You don't get stunned from the slams, the melee slam attacks, and you also get the tier 3 Tros, so that's just something to keep in mind. But I think that's enough talking. Let's just go ahead and start here. Just like to surge, I'll wait for him to say always you and start my son. Vuln, TC with Smoke Cloud into a G-Conk, D-Breath, and I'll just go ahead and go into an Auto Tempest. Nami, Staff Spec, Run under, swap to Exsanguinate, G-Conk into an Impact with an Auto Wild Magic, 2-hit is fix. Go into a G-Conk with an Omni Power, and I'll just hit Tendies to get the damage out. Here, I'm going to go for a Auto G-Conk and go for the underflank, or walk underflank. I missed the timing there a little bit, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And just run out. And what I like to do here is just get a couple bleeds going so they carry over into the next phase. And we get Sun soon, so I'll just swap back over to Insight Fear. Time Warp. Lost a little bleed. G-Conk under. And can flank. Auto Nami, and then just wait for the Time Warp. Staff Spec, and just start doing more damage. Go G-Conk into a Wild Magic. The reason you walk under that attack is just to avoid the thing shooting out. There's like a little Time Warp or a Time Rift thing he can summon, and if you run under, it just negates it. But we'll just keep doing some damage here. That flank hit a 16-8. That was really nice. And we'll just go back to Insight Fear, get some bleeds built up, kind of rinse and repeat what we've done. We'll just do a couple basics, maybe an auto into a G-Conk here. A rack, hit our Nami. Run under. A flank. Another flank. Hit as well. G-Conk into a G-Staff. Auto G-Conk, and should be able to get our Staff Spec here. Up over to Exsanguinate. Go for an Auto Wild. Flank. Auto into a Omni. And we'll just hit attendees here. This should get us pretty close to phasing. Flank while he's under. Or flank while he's slamming down. And we'll hit the Wild Magic just to make sure. Was cutting it a little bit close there. Alright, so what I like to do here is go into this north one, hit my Vit Pot, go into the center, and then just put 3 bleeds, all 3 magic bleeds on the center guy. Time Warp. And then, I thought I hit Sunshine, but I guess I didn't. And then just hit a couple thresholds. Usually I have Wild Magic as fixed there on this guy, but kind of fat-fingered there, so we'll just play this one by ear. And just try and kill this one pretty quickly before that guy dies. Or this version of you, I should say. And this one I like to just Omni. And I'll auto Ice Rack. Or Ice Auto Rack. Something like that. Words are difficult. And here I'll just build up for a Sun. I don't have to worry about Time Warp. You can go ahead and go for a Divert if you want. Go for your Nami, your Staff Spec, swap over to Exsanguinate. Maybe G-Conk into a D-Breath. Then you can hit Time Warp, Devotion, and Wild Magic is Fix him. Get Tendies going on the other one, or on Kerapac himself. Hit Omni Power before it's Time Warp happens, so you can get 2 Omnis and 2 Omnis and 2 Tendrils. If you have to, you can Disrupt Shield one of the hits before you Devo the other, and it's just getting the kill from here. Alright, 407, that was a little bit slow. I've been averaging anywhere from 350 to 4 minutes. I've had a couple in the 340s, but I think what I'll go ahead and do is just go ahead and do a kill. Maybe not so much commentary explaining it this time, but I'm just going to do a second kill, so if you want, y'all can pay attention and just see what goes on. I'll probably end up commentating anyways, but it'll probably be a little bit more limited. But we'll just go in. Forgot to get Overload. That is kind of important. You go to your bank, load up your bank preset, grab your Overload. Another dose of Weapon Poison if it's low. Grab your Prayer. Make sure you have your Adrenaline and your APOT timer reset. Enter. Start. Double Surge. And just wait for the start. timer, or wait for the audio cue. Build up with a couple basics, go into our Nami. Half spec, run under. I'll go for a deep impact because we got the relent proc. Continuous into a 2-hit is fix, wild magic. Auto G conk. Omni power into attendees. Auto G conk. Another G staff. Quite a bit of damage. That was rather fast. Release detonate into a wild. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to start doing a second kill and whether you want this one to be commentated or not commentated. I haven't really played with this too much before. So, yeah, just let me know. I figured I should probably start including a second kill. It might be helpful. Another G-Conk, go into an Omni. Flank as I leave. Endies. And charge up our Deado. Yeah, this one's gone a little bit faster. Kind of surprised by it. But I'll just get some bleeds up. Time warp here. Conk into our flank. Auto Nami. I got 10 seconds till our staff specs. I'll just go ahead and like auto and wild magic into a fix. I'll just let it carry out. We go into a G-Conk here. Our staff spec. Auto into an Omni. Into a walk under flank. Oh, that counted as flank. I'm surprised. Magic into an Asphyx. And I'll hit the G-Staff just to phase him. Again, go into the north guy, hit the Vit Pot, go to the center one, bleed, second bleed, third bleed. Need a little bit more adrenaline. Time warp. Stun. Back the south one. And the reason I do this is if you kill this one and let this guy live, it'll actually take a little bit less in rage. It'll put less in rage on Kerapac if you do it this way. So he lived. Or the version of you lived. I'm honestly not sure what the lore behind this whole phase is. We got that one done relatively quickly, so I'll swap over to Insight as quick as I can. Maybe divert to try and get into Sun faster. It didn't work. Hit our A-Pot. Couple of abilities. Nami. Staff spec. Swap to Xang. Eat a little bit of food. Time warp. And I'll just immediately go into attendees. I'm not going to bother with wild magic here. Just so I can get the Omni power off. Thought I'd have G-Conk. Just hit another Devotion. Attendees. Into a Omni power, into a wild. Here I'll Fortic just because I can. And there's a second kill. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to start doing a second kill, kind of just run them back to back, and whether you want the second one to have commentary, not have commentary, or if you just want me to keep it to the one example kill. Just let me know down in the comments below. I'll just go ahead and do a quick wrap up or a quick overview or a recap, whatever you want to call it, of the kill. So all I do is I surge into the arena, I wait for him to finish saying always you, and that's the point in time in which I toss my Vuln Bomb and start my Sun. And as you can see, I go for 3 basics into a Nami staff spec, and that's about the time when he is going to start up his first attack. At that point, you just run under until he slams his staff on the ground. Basically, if you miss it, what'll happen is the game will draw a line between you and Kerapac all the way out to the end of the arena, and you'll see like a little time rift somewhere along the perimeter that you have to kill. And while it's open, it will start to hit you for like 400s or 500s in typeless, and it'll also send a bunch of magic hits to you from the time warp linked back to Kerapac. So it's very advantageous to skip it, and you can figure out how to weave your rotation in and out. It just takes some practice to get used to spamming out a DPS rotation while walking under, but the walk under gives some nice opportunities for using a flanking swap with impact and deep impact. I think I was going a little bit overboard on trying to get as much use out of flanking as possible. That's just because it's just because I just bought it, so there is that. I wouldn't go for flanking too often, especially if it's going to interrupt your in and out, because when he is slamming down and he is holding that animation and spamming you with melee hits, you're doing half damage there, so that's why you want to run in and out. Alternatively, you can use escape if you have double escape unlocked and either Shadow's Grace or some form of mobile on your gear. You can use escape and run back in, kind of like one of these, and then he'll do his slam, and then you can escape again and just keep attacking and whatnot, and it usually works out. However, I just kind of like going in and out, and so I think you have to be 3 or 4 tiles away for his animation to clear up and for him to start the next slam. And with best in slot gear and decent rotations, you should be able to skip all of the lightnings. You never should see any of the lightning attacks, so you don't really have to worry about them. And I'll be honest with you, if I get a time rift from goofing up and messing up the kill or doing something dumb, or I don't skip the lightning, I honestly just teleport out and start over. I don't think it's really worth continuing the kill at that point, especially if it's on P1 or 2, because as you go on, copies of the first few phases will spawn and kind of do the same thing over, even if you do the mechanic correctly again. So if you mess up the very first spec on P1 or 2, I would just teleport. If you get the lightning wall, you could carry on, but I honestly just teleport out because I usually get kind of annoyed at myself. But other than that, that's pretty much it from Kerapac. I hope you found this guide useful, and with all of that being said, I think it is time to close the video out here. Let's go ahead and roll that outro. Ladies, gentlemen, and I did not forget about you, expensive spices. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time for the next guide. Peace.